Welcome to today's episode of What Does the Law Say with Irike. If you have not subscribed yet, please click on the subscribe button and don't forget to share this video. To avoid stories that touch, let's go right into today's discussion. So in today's discussion, we'll talk about the new regulation that was signed by the President of Nigeria, President Muhammad Buhari. The regulation is called the COVID-19 Disease Health Protection 2021 Regulation. And this regulation has 6 parts. One major thing about this regulation, or one major part, is that the wearing of face mask now is mandatory in public places. That means you won't have access into any public place except if you have your face mask on. So let's look at the remaining parts of the regulation and what it says, the punishments, that is the penalties, and those that are meant to enforce these regulations. The first part of the regulation states that there's restriction on gatherings. It also says that we should ensure physical distancing, so that same measurement of 2 meters or 6 feet, stay 6 feet apart from the next person. Also that in an enclosed space, not more than 50 persons should be allowed, and for religious purposes, you can have about 50% capacity of that space. Okay, so part 2 of the regulation, this is the part that covers the wearing of face mask, the fact that it's mandatory, and that as long as you're in a public space, you must wear a face mask. So part 2 of the regulation states and gives us, the places that you would call a public space. So part 2 says that, within the premises of a market, within a mall, a supermarket, a leisure park, a restaurant, hotel, event centers, gardens, recreation centers, motor parks, fitness centers, all of it that like gymming, fitness centers, or any other similar establishments. So no person shall be allowed to enter into these spaces except if they are wearing a face mask. So if you're not wearing a face mask and they stop you in any of these public places, don't be upset, don't be angry. That's the regulation that is in place now. As long as you're entering into a public place, or as long as you're going to be in a public place, you must wear a face mask. And that face mask must cover your nose and then cover your mouth. So no more face mask that will be reaching here. I mean, the one that people will be rolling up, I don't know if it's to wear their face mask, but I mean, you must cover your nose and then your mouth. Also ensuring that you abide with the part 1 of the regulation, ensuring physical distance. Also, this part 2 regulation also ensures that with you wearing your face mask, covering your nose and your mouth, you must also wash your hands or use sanitizers that have been approved by NAFDAC. So even when you go to these public places, aside the fact that they say you should wear a mask, you're also supposed to use sanitizers or wash your hands. And it is expected that these places have such. So part 2 of the regulation also says that any person that upon entry into a public place, after checking the temperature, they find out that they are above 38 degrees Celsius, you're not supposed to be allowed onto that premises or that public space. So sorry in advance. If it's that, even if you don't even have COVID, but you have a high temperature, they will not allow you into any public space. It also says that all users of place of worship must comply with part 1 and part 2 of the regulation. That means wearing of their face mask, the capacity that should be in a particular place, washing of hands, and the rest. And also adding that the worshippers are not meant to share, things like mats, hymn books, and the rest, where you can exchange things and the virus can pass. So aside places of worship, also workplaces and school premises are to ensure that they abide with the part 1 and part 2 regulations. Part 3 of the regulation addresses mandatory compliance to the treatment protocol. So whatever treatment protocols that have been put in place by NCDC, or whatever treatment protocol that has been put in place by the government, we must ensure that we comply with the treatment protocols. Part 4 of the regulation, very important. Part 4 of the regulation states the penalties in case you breach, you refuse to wear your nose mask, or you refuse to wear your face shield, and you go to a public place. Part 4 states the penalties for this breach of the regulation. So it says that any person without reasonable cause obstructs an authorized official from enforcement of the regulation. You commit an offense and you'll be punishable in a summary conviction, either by a fine or by term of imprisonment, by a 6-month term of imprisonment, or both. So in the event that you do not comply with the regulation, or you obstruct an official from carrying out his own duty, if found guilty, you either pay a fine or 6 months imprisonment or both. A face mask is not as expensive as us keeping safe, so as much as you feel like, oh, I just wanted to get something from the restaurant very quickly, I was not going to take so long, let me not wait. No, if they pick you up, you are found guilty, you would serve that punishment, you would pay for the penalty, and I don't think you want to pay a fine or go to imprisonment for 6 months because you refuse to wear a face shield. Part 5 of the regulation states those that are authorized to enforce this regulation. So you need to listen to these people that are authorized to enforce the regulation. In case any of them stops you any day and say, hey, madam or guy, you're not wearing your face mask. You're not like, what's your own? Are you NCDC and the rest? So part 5 states these officials that are authorized to enforce the regulation. The officials that are meant to enforce these regulations are the Nigerian Police Force, the Nigerian Security Civil Defense Corps, Nigerian Immigration Service, Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, Federal Road Safety Corps, and other local government or state governments officials are meant to enforce this regulation. So a police officer can stop you because you're not wearing your mask. A Federal Road Safety Corps official can stop you because you're not wearing your mask. In a public place, it's mandatory for you to wear your face mask in a public place. Lastly, the part 6 says that the provisions of this regulation are to apply across the whole country, across all the states in the whole country. So you won't say, oh, they can arrest us in Lagos, they can arrest us in Kaduna, they can arrest us in Delta, they can arrest us in Oyo State. No, this regulation applies throughout the country. Meanwhile, other states can also make their regulations, but this regulation passed by the president applies throughout the nation. So please ensure that you keep safe. I mean, this is not the time to be complacent. There's been so much news about whether there's a second variant in Nigeria. Whether or not there's a second variant in Nigeria, there is still COVID. And you want to make sure that you wear your nose mask or your face shield. You want to make sure that you wash your hands properly. You want to make sure that you use sanitizers if you can't wash your hand. And then if you suspect any of the symptoms in your body, please visit the nearest hospital and then get tested so that we can curb and help and save every life in Nigeria. Thank you very much for watching today's episode of What Does the Law Say? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. What does the law say? I'll tell you next Thursday.